G'day champions, it's been a while. We've got a pair of trendy ass pedals here. Boss DM-2, analog delay, and an old Ibanez tube screamer TS10. They're pretty dirty, and they've been brought in with reports of crackling. Essentially they are working. The Boss was brought in for broken battery connector. You can see there it's missing one of its things and it's covered in corrosion and battery residue. So that brings me to my next point. Here's the battery, leaking residue around its seams there. Should probably be wearing gloves for this. It's a bit bulgy and a little bit of corrosion. So the more loyal of my fan base will remember that we are coming up to St. Patrick's Day. And what's St. Patrick's Day on Brad's Guitar Garage channel? It is Change Your Batteries Day. Once a year. It's not that big a cost. Seriously, if you've got that much gear that it's a big cost, then you can afford some batteries. This one is dated 0900, or is that 0060? I don't think it's used by. It's 2060, so I'd say that's used by 9th month of 2000, which is pretty likely, or it could be 2009, but you know, the zero would indicate either days or months, and there's no month zero, so I'd say that is 09 year 2000. So somewhat out of date. No wonder it leaked. Now, when I show batteries of this age to a lot of my customers, particularly in acoustic guitars, they often say, oh, I didn't even know it had a battery. Yes, they do. All acoustic preamps are battery powered generally. Might be one or two phantom powered designs out there, but generally they've got a battery, and it's usually 9 volt or AA, and it needs to be either replaced, or if you don't use the preamp, if you just play the thing acoustically, just remove it. It's fine, and that way you won't leak and damage the surrounding circuit boards. So there's some random shmoo in there which I'll have to clean out, and it's lost its little grommet there, so I'll put a new one of them on, as well as change that battery clip out with a higher quality, but more importantly a new one. Now, just a quick note on old school Boss pedals. I found a bit of a gold mine there at one point. Everyone was plugging these things in and the light wasn't turning on, so they were selling them as broken, but what they didn't understand is the ACA adapter is a 12 volt output. The modern Boss pedals are 9 volt adapter it wants to see. So the reason for this is when they first came out, 9 volt adapters weren't very common. 12 volt being the de facto standard for auto stuff, portable electronics, because that's what a car battery is. 12 volt adapters in DC were readily available. However, 9 volt batteries in the units had to interface with the circuitry. So the circuitry was built to run on 9 volts, and then they would introduce a dropping resistor into the circuit of the DC input jack. So the circuit itself saw 9 volts, but you plug in a 12 volt adapter into it. So what that does is, if you plug 9 volts, it still drops, and now the voltage inside the thing ends up at like 6 or 7 volts depending on the current draw. So the light doesn't turn on. Often the pedal functions, but not as well as it should. Distortion pedals, that kind of thing, will probably function almost the same as when they've got full voltage, just maybe a little bit more distortion, lack of headroom there. But some of the pedals that rely on monolithic chips or anything digital, like the early digital delays, they might cease to function altogether. So you can easily bypass that by just shorting out that resistor. It's a different resistor number on each schematic, so I can't quote you an R number, but that will make the pedal run natively on 9 volts. However, if someone does plug in 12 volts as recommended by the adapter codes here, you may damage the pedal. And also for vintage collector fanboy guys, you know, no allowance for them, they don't want to modify anything in these pedals, so often you leave it for the 12 volt and they just get a 12 volt adapter and happy days. So as is the case on pretty much all Boss pedals of this vintage, you can see down in there that connector, that is very corroded, and one of the symptoms of that is you move the pedal around a little bit, you move the plug around and it drops in and out, crackles, the light turns on and off. You can clean it, sort of, but once it's tarnished like that, it's time to call it a day on that connector and just install a new one. These are still readily available from CE Distribution and many other places. There's two sizes. There's the standard sort of modern size, that's corroded as hell as well, so we'll replace that one too. Pretty much all of them go that way after 20 years. And then there's the more rectangular one there. Well, they're both rectangular, but that one's upright and that one's horizontal and offset. So this is what a new one looks like. With a nice shiny plated contact there, so we'll replace that one with a new one. And same goes on the TS10. But before we do anything to them, we'll plug them in and have a quick listen, see if we can get any signal out of them at all, and see if there's any other problems that we might be able to address while we've got them apart to save some time. Alright, so we've got signal. So that's a good sign with the Boss pedal. That means it's getting some power because the buffer's working. If you've got no power at all on these, you don't get any signal. So I'm giving it 9 volts at the moment, and you can see the LED is off. That is now the pedal engaged. Sorry, that's the pedal engaged. Oh, okay. There it is. So that's working on 9 volts, but it's a bit quieter and a bit more distorted in the delays because the chip's probably not biased properly, the Bucket Brigade chip, the MN series from Panasonic. You can hear the repeats there, a bit distorted. So if we take that up to the 12 volts that it wants to see, straight away you notice as you go down in voltage, it cuts off at about 6 volts, and as you bring it up, the delay time reduces, so that's affecting the oscillator speed as well, as it would. Alright, so we just went from about 8 up to, now it's sitting at 12 volts and you can see the LED. Okay, so I think that switch is playing up too. So problem number 300. I might give that switch a clean or just replace it. I tend to stock most of the stuff for Boss pedals because they're so common. So there's still a bit of distortion there. These are pretty funky pedals, but some scratchiness on the pots there, but so it's generally functioning pretty well for an analog delay. They are pretty grungy things to begin with, but that's part of their charm. So I think changing that battery clip, replacing that DC input jack, just giving the thing a clean, cleaning the pots, cleaning the switch, that seems to be working okay now, but a little bit twitchy, so I think the switch is just dirty. And the owner just wants to sell this thing on, so that will get it into a condition, as well as just cleaning the thing because it is pretty filthy. That will get it into a condition that it would be okay to sell in. Now onto the TS10. Now I don't understand tube screamers in general. I really dislike the sound of them. I don't understand the concept. I don't know why everyone likes them. To me, it sounds to me like crossover distortion in a poorly biased amp. So it's not my bag, that's for sure. The only thing I use these things for, and they excel at, is turning the drive all the way down and using them as a boost and a tone shaper to drive the front end of an amp. If you've got a Plexi or something that doesn't have incredible amounts of gain, or overdrive I should say, you can push the front end with one of these and get yourself into Metal Town. So just have a quick listen at this. Very scratchy. sketchy as one would expect. Oh. I think that's just dirty. I thought it was maybe a bad solder connection there, but I think that's just dirty as well. So again, overall not too bad. We'll take it apart, give it a clean. This one had no battery in it. It's got a funny little clip there to open this pedal, and then you can access the battery, similar to a Boss but a little bit different in design. It's a strange looking clip, and the wire's hanging out. So okay, we've got to change the battery on this one too, the battery clip on this one as well. Looks like someone's repaired this, or attempted to. So here it looks like where the wire exits there, the black wire's pulled out. So what have they done? They've just shoved a pen or something through and just shove the wire in there and try and get it to it so it pinches on the battery connections. Anything to get the gig done, right? That you got paid 30 bucks for. So we'll replace that as well. So pretty much the same on these two pedals. So we'll crack the Boss open first. Just visually inspect the thing as well. Just check that there's no traces being eaten away and no residue from that battery leakage. I doubt it would have made it into the chassis itself, being that it's in its own little compartment, but you never know. It's got an insulative sheet there. Do not lose that. There's been some pedals where their solder's faulty simply because that's missing and stuff was shorting out, and all I did was put a piece of a blister pack in there and the pedal was good again. Alright, so looking at that, that board's in actually pretty good condition. It doesn't look like anyone's been in here before, which is always good. There's no lifted pads or dodgy looking soldering or burnt flux or anything, so she's pretty good nick, this one. And interestingly, that MN3005, the Bucket Brigade delay chip, it's hard to say in the morning after you've only had one coffee, that's on a IC socket, which I haven't seen in one of these before. Generally I've seen they're just soldered in. Alright, there's the new DC jack installed. That's actually meant to be a through hole one, and you can see it's got just the pins there without an eyelet. So I've just tack soldered them. It's a pretty lightweight wire, not really supporting any weight itself. That will be fine. Next we'll get onto the battery clip. Now that's got a little cable tied down inside there, which is a little bit fiddly to get out. Would have been fiddly for whoever tied it. So I'll cut that off. We can pull the battery clip out. Now to feed the new battery clip wires through, there's just a little notch in the cutout for the switch, and that's where the wires disappear down into the battery cavity. So just got to feed that through there. We'll give the thing a clean first, give it a blast with compressed air. So it looks like the acid is, or the battery residue, whatever it is, has started to affect the finish in there. Paint's peeling off a bit. I might just give that a rinse with a wet sponge just to try and neutralise it a bit. The sponge there that holds the battery down is still in good nick, so that's good. You would have expected that to disintegrate over the years, but it's still good. I'll just give the battery clip a bit of a twist to the wiring, keep it together, make it a bit neater. Alright, so there's a new clip installed. I just got the brass bristle brush and took off most of the corrosion on the inside there and just gave it a bit of a clean with a wet sponge. And there's the new DC jack installed, the wire going off to the battery clip and the other terminal down on the input jack there. So I'll just give these pots a quick clean and then we'll put it back together and just do a final test. So what would a Brad's Guitar Garage video be without little nuggets of information to help you out? Deoxit Fader F5 Fader Lube, right? This stuff's gone up to over 50 bucks here per can, and you're talking 142 grams. Not a lot. It's probably going to last the average punter a good couple of years but I go through quite a bit here. And the worst part is this stupid monstrosity at the top. Who designs this shit? You'd have to be looking for a pay rise. There's easier ways to look for a pay rise than design dumb expensive shit like that. Just have a normal nozzle like that, right? Just, it's been done a billion times before. We don't want to be impressed by a design prowess. We just want to use the shit that's in the can. So this has got a stupid convoluted angly thing. It's no better than this. Just, you know, tried and true. So anyway, this stuff's about $6 to $8 a can, right? And it's just as good, if not better. Electro-Lube EML. So don't buy this stuff. I use this anyway. I thought you might like a. Now I'll go to buy this stuff and it'll be sold out. But yeah, for like a fraction of the cost, it's just as good. Doesn't have the stupid cap thing. And one thing you can do to these, get a bit of just bus wire, like 18 gauge, stick it in the tip, and then gently heat it with the hot air gun and bend the wire, and now you've got a little kink, so you can get into weird spots, or just you can fire that into a pot body without having to have the can, you know, in the exact position. So that is very handy as well. So I've always got one can just with that on, ready to go, and another can, because it is cheap, I've always got 2 or 3 cans on the go, and one with just the straight nozzle as well. So in this case we've got access to the pots. Where I like to apply it is just on the wafer, a tiny bit, let it run. So that wafer's got the conductive track facing the camera, and if we just give it a tiny bit, it literally hits the wafer and spreads out. You don't need much at all. I give it a shake so I don't end up with a can full of cleaner with no propellant left. But that is probably all we need, and you can barely see it. You get so many pieces of equipment in that there's just a puddle of stuff. Like old mates just sat on it, went and had a smoke and come back, and you know, you need bugger all, and then just give them a good old cycle like that. Alright, so you can get the replacement little grommet for Boss, but I've found just an average grommet does the job. Can be a little bit more difficult to get in because it's got a wider shoulder, but you know, it does the job, mate. Just get a screwdriver or something in there to work it in. And Bob's your grandfather. And there we go. Just makes it a little bit more gentle to use. Alright, next I'll give the input and output jack just a bit of a clean with some ISO. So that one's happy. Just give the control panel a bit of a clean. Now normally you wouldn't bother doing all this, but these things are going for like $4.50, so you know, it's kind of worthwhile. Having said that, people would probably pay more for it if it looked more ratty, as the market tends to do. Alright, now I've just got a spray bottle with just a bit of water in it. No solvents or anything, just a bit of moisture just to release whatever congealed stuff is on the surface. That's usually all you need. Start using any detergents or solvents, and you risk removing the lettering on older stuff in particular. Give the Boss logo a bit of a clean, and the little ridge around the edge of the rubber insert there, which always collects lots of stuff. Just give that little ridge down there a clean as well. Lots of stuff collects in there. It's a pedal board, it's by your feet, of course. Everything sticks to it like glue, and it's a bit of a beer magnet too for live gigs. People leaning over your pedal board with a schooner, sloshing around. And there she is, ready to rock. So I'll put that one aside and get onto the TS10. Alright, so we can just snip that off. Take off the rear cover and have a little look inside as well. That screw might have been cross-threaded, it wasn't all the way in. Someone's been in here before. Someone's played knifey spoony before. Alright, all the board appears to be non-messed with. The circuit board securing screw down here is loose. So someone might have taken this apart to look at replacing the clip and decided against it. Too hard. Alright, so this has got a second board for the controls. Might remove that because it's a bit hard to have access to anything. Oh, we can work around it. It's got enough slack, I just realised. There's a residue on the cables. So like I said, someone's just sprayed the living hell out of this thing with cleaner. Yeah, I think I'll take it out. Just because if there's any residue there, I probably want to clean it up because it's like a dust magnet. Dust collects the stuff and then starts conducting. Not generally at pedal voltages, but you never know. Yeah, there's residue all over everything, so someone's just sat on it like an idiot. Fortunately, it doesn't look like this cleaner is corrosive like a recent job I had where the whole board was almost eaten away to nothing, copper wise. Yeah, all of these have grease all over them, so they've just probably taken the knobs off and just blasted it through those holes, which is not the way to do it. Alright, give them a clean up, get some paper towel out and some ISO and see if that can dissolve that grease. Now I'm not pouring ISO on the actual in the pots, I'm just cleaning around them. If it does remove any lubricant from the pot, then we'll be reapplying that later anyway. It's got a strange smell, whatever they used. It smells almost peppery. I'll get my acid brush. It's called an acid brush because plumbers use them to apply acid flux to joints before brazing. So you know, they're general purpose brushes, cheap, and you can use them for anything. Which is good because they've got narrow, long bristles. You can get down between components. So on the TS10, the DC input is circuit board mounted. I'll just reflow that. It looked a little bit light on. That's the input jack. Let's do the output jack as well, eh? This is leaded solder, so no need to just clean it all off like you do on the lead free stuff. Just apply some more with some fresh flux and you're good to go. So again, I'll apply some more solder here just to take advantage of the flux. And in honour of Lyle Caldwell, I'll use some solder braid instead of the solder extractor. Just for a change, you know, good as a holiday and I'm not getting one of them anytime soon, so braid sucks it all up. And it sucks it up very effectively because there's also flux in this braid. Now this one is a Tektronix, I believe. I'll have a look in a sec when I've finished using it. I can flip the reel over. Alright, that worked rather well. I think Lyle's onto something here. That should just fall out. Pretty much. So the braid is Tektronix number 6. That's the part number there. I think I got this one from Tektronix in Australia. Got our new jack here. We'll just fold the terminals over a little bit. He's got pretty heavy terminals on this one. Sometimes they're very thin. Now that's going to be jiggling around a bit, so what we'll do, put a little bit of solder on one, push it down, just align it, make sure everything's straight. A little bit of solder on the other one, and just make sure it's bedded down on the top surface of the circuit board, and then do the third one. Happy days. Nice shiny new DC input jack. Right, so we've got a new battery clip there. Just twisted that again as I did with the Boss. You've got a ridiculously long wire going to the foot switch. So we'll reassemble that now. We'll give the pots a bit of a quick lube, and then we'll reassemble it and clean the exterior and give it a test. Alright, so she's back together, all cleaned up. So you can hear sort of that alongside the distortion. As you put the drive up, it becomes more obvious. But it's okay. I'm just not a big fan of it, but it's just like my opinion, man. The clean just seems to sort of box everything out. But, you know, this is going through a Marshall MG10 on the bench, so far from a review. Anyway, she's working good. The scratchiness in the controls is gone, and it lives to fight another day. So thanks for joining us, legends. This was a bit of a warm-up. I haven't done any videos for a while because I've been too busy. The priority is on getting jobs completed and out the door so I can actually pay some bills this year, and videos are like a distant fifth. But I do enjoy making them, and hopefully I have enough time to make some more very soon once I get the repair queue in order. At the moment there's about 50 or 60 live jobs happening, so I've got to get them finished in order to get paid and get them out the door, and then we can have some more time to do videos, hopefully. So until the next one, sit tight. Hopefully I'll have it out soon, and we can have some more interesting stuff happening than 2 vintage pedals. Take it easy, legends, and I'll see you then.